A well-known film director and a Texas prison inmate whose story was brought to the big screen in the movie Bernie have launched a fight for him to be in an air-conditioned facility. A legal crusade that attorneys say could help others suffering in the state's sweltering prisons.
Comes just as Texas experienced what climatologists say was the second hottest summer on record in the state of Texas. That put a new urgent emphasis on the lack of universal air conditioning inside the state's 100 prison facilities.
The KVUE Defenders obtained exclusive video of Bernie Tiede talking about conditions inside the Texas prison where he's housed. Here's senior reporter Tony Plahetsky.
You wake up and you're just rolling in your sweat.
Texas-based film director and producer Richard Linklater, whose famous works include Dazed and Confused and Boyhood, took a series of videos of 65-year-old Bernie Tiede inside the Estelle Unit in Huntsville on August 4th. He's describing the broiling conditions inside.
No escape. There's no, you can't get away from it unless you just put something wet on your face or you have a chill towel or something like that.
A dozen years earlier, Linklater made Tiede's story of killing an elderly East Texas woman and storing her body in a freezer the plot of the acclaimed dark comedy movie Bernie.
You need someone.
Linklater, working with Tiede's new legal team, went to see him in prison after learning about his declining health.
He wasn't really the Bernie I knew who's so positive. You know, he's teaching, he's doing all these great things for others. He was happy to see me. He smiled occasionally, but he was just, and I noticed everyone around in the prison, there was just this pall over everything.
A couple of weeks later, Tiede's legal team filed this lawsuit against the state and federal court in Austin, asking that he be urgently moved from his unair-conditioned housing to an air-conditioned facility. They argued that because of his overall health, including hypertension and diabetes, that, quote, if Mr. Tiede's deadly incarceration conditions continue unabated, Mr. Tiede is likely to die this summer in 2023. In what his attorneys say was a rarely granted effort, U.S. Magistrate Judge Mark Lane ordered Tiede to receive air conditioning for at least 14 days, adding that, quote, the nature of his risk, death, warrants emergency intervention. Those 14 days end Thursday. This year's brutal summer, the second worst in state history behind 2011, put a new emphasis on the lack of universal air conditioning in most of the state's prisons. Texas is one of 13 states that has no way of cooling its facilities. During this year's legislative session that ended in May, the House advanced a bipartisan $540 million effort to cover the initial cost of a plan to eventually provide so-called cool beds in all of the state's prisons. But the Senate did not address the funding, and it was left out of the state's $321 billion biennium budget. The issue prompted a rally at the Capitol in July. According to this 2022 report by Texas A&M's Hazard Reduction and Recovery Center, 23 people have died in the state prison system since 1998. And in 2018 alone, at least 79 incarcerated people and staff have been sickened by the heat. The state says it has not had a heat-related death since 2012.
It's just a horrible, horrible, torturous situation. So I have to believe your average citizen is not for that. We're not for it with animals. We certainly wouldn't be for it with humans.
Linklater says he was deeply disturbed by Tiede's condition after visiting him.
This is a horrible feeling to have when you're leaving someone, but to go, I think that might be the last time I ever see Bernie alive. I really had that feeling.
And that's why he made these videos. Tiede's attorneys are asking a federal judge to extend the period Tiede must receive air conditioning beyond 14 days. We also reached out to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, which says it does not comment on pending litigation. For the KVUE Defenders, Tony Plahetsky, KVUE News.